Right now, behind closed doors, a massive national security panic is unfolding over who actually owns the infrastructure controlling our global skies. And it's happening at the exact same time Wall Street is quietly preparing for the largest public debut in financial history, an $80 billion move engineered to mint the world's first verified trillionaire.
The SEC filings we're looking at project a staggering target valuation. We are talking up to $2 trillion. That capitalization instantly parachutes this aerospace giant into the exact same tier as Apple, Nvidia, and Microsoft. It's a completely unprecedented leap for a company crossing over from the private to the public markets.
You look at the paper equity, and that's the exact math that rockets Elon Musk past the $1 trillion threshold, a totally historic wealth milestone. But and this is a massive catch. When you actually lift the hood on this monumental valuation, the gap financial reality underneath is just an absolute bloodbath. The sheer scale of the capital burn here is staggering. We're talking a nearly $5 billion net loss in 2025, which then radically accelerated to a $4.28 billion loss in just the first 3 months of 2026 alone. They are sitting on an accumulated deficit of over $41 billion. So you have to wonder, how on earth do you pitch a $2 trillion empire to Wall Street when the losses are accelerating that fast? Well, you force a highly unusual corporate structure. Leadership completely blindsided Wall Street here by forcing a consolidated IPO structure. The play is incredibly intentional. They are taking the massive recurring cash flows of the Starlink utility, which actually boasts software-like 63% margins, and aggressively using that cash to cross-subsidize the deep losses of the unproven Starship architecture, plus their newly absorbed AI venture XAI. The high-margin utility that investors actually want to buy into is secretly bankrolling a highly speculative multi-decade mission to Mars. But here's the real tension. That core utility is slamming headfirst into a brutal physics bottleneck. Despite all the massive corporate hype, real-world speed test data reveals less than half of US customers are actually getting standard broadband speeds. Why? Because the current system architecture literally caps out at about 6 households per square mile before the network degrades. The physical limitations of space are clashing directly with the subscriber growth they desperately need to justify this valuation. This aggressive cash burn and that hard physical constraint, that is exactly why major institutional giants are right now publicly blacklisting the listing. You have folks like Anders Schelde, the CIO of the Danish pension fund Akademiker Pension, bluntly calling the valuation pure fantasy. Institutions demand accountability, but here they are staring down a corporate apparatus that actively, aggressively resists it. And that lack of accountability isn't just a phase. It is legally locked in. The entire corporation is engineered around a dual-class share architecture that grants one single individual an absolute 82.4% of the voting power. It is a system of untouchable founder control. The market is basically being asked to hand over $80 billion with zero ability to influence how a single cent gets spent. Just how volatile is this structure? Well, that was perfectly exposed during the strict regulatory quiet period. The official SEC prospectus highlighted this massive $45 billion AI data center deal, but almost immediately, Musk jumps on X and outright contradicts his own SEC filing, saying the deal was actually just a short-term 180-day lease. It forced a completely embarrassing amendment, and honestly, it proved to investors just how quickly long-term revenues can vanish into thin air without traditional corporate filters. But listen, this commercial tension on Wall Street, it's absolutely nothing compared to the quiet, systemic panic currently unfolding inside the Pentagon. Because just days before this public listing, the U.S. Space Force locked in 2 massive defense contracts, totaling $6.45 billion. What the Space Force effectively just did was hand a single private corporation an absolute monopoly over national security launch access. They are now the official backbone of the Golden Dome Initiative, our space-based missile tracking shield. Think about that. The entire U.S. military is fundamentally reliant on one single company for tracking foreign cruise missiles and maintaining encrypted orbital communications. Military planners are absolutely terrified of this single-point vulnerability. And last year, we saw exactly why. A simple commercial network outage left 24 autonomous Navy vessels drifting completely out of control in the Pacific Ocean. If this private network goes down, the United States military literally loses its tactical eyes and ears. So, while the military relies on this infrastructure for its most sensitive operations, a massive political bomb just detonated over in the Senate. A high-stakes national security investigation is now underway, looking into explosive allegations of masked foreign capital buried deep inside the company's private cap table. This is where the story shifts from a financial debate into a full-blown geopolitical crisis. Unsealed court records recently revealed testimony from a corporate insider admitting that adversarial capital was actively routed through offshore shell companies down in the Cayman Islands. The goal? To completely bypass standard U.S. defense contractor tracking. The sworn testimony was incredibly blunt. Chinese investors are listed directly on the cap table.
Security analysts are frantically warning that this shadow cap table provides Beijing with massive geopolitical leverage. Because the founder's personal wealth is so deeply tied to Tesla's manufacturing footprint over in Shanghai, there are intense fears that China's regulatory influence could easily be weaponized. They could force technology transfers, specifically involving highly sensitive aerospace or military-grade laser communications.
And these geopolitical risks are matched by violently physical, real-world consequences right now. Aggressive testing of the Starship architecture has recently led to structural failures that literally rained debris over the ocean, forcing the FAA to issue emergency warnings. Everyday commercial passenger planes are being forced to alter their flight routes and burn extra fuel right at this moment just to avoid falling rocket parts. But the threat goes so much higher than commercial flights. Commercial lobby forces have successfully pressured the FAA to withdraw orbital debris removal rules, leaving low Earth orbit incredibly congested. Scientists are warning us that a single high-velocity collision up there could trigger Kessler syndrome. That's a cascading chain reaction that wouldn't just destroy billions in infrastructure, it could permanently close off space access, taking global GPS, banking, and the entire internet offline with it.
So you step back and realize this $80 billion IPO isn't just about expanding an American company. It is aggressively accelerating a fierce global space race. Heavily funded countermeasures from sovereign competitors are spinning up immediately. You've got the European Union attempting to build its IRIS-2 constellation for strategic autonomy, though that's completely plagued by delays. China is a very different story.
China is rapidly scaling its state-backed Tianfan mega constellation. They are already successfully launching reusable rockets equipped with dual-brain architecture, specifically designed to challenge Western commercial dominance by the end of this decade. They aren't treating this as just a fun commercial venture, they are treating it as a sovereign imperative.
After decades of being locked out, everyday retail investors are finally being invited to buy in. But they're being asked to absorb massive capital risks at the absolute peak of what looks like a mathematically stretched bubble. Wall Street thinks they are buying into a global telecommunications utility. In reality, they are underwriting a private, sovereign empire. As the sheer scale of the financial losses, the physical network limits, and the massive geopolitical vulnerabilities finally hit the public markets, we really have to look closely at that cap table. What actually happens when a nation's entire defense apparatus becomes dependent on a private empire that answers to absolutely no one?
An investment in knowledge pays the best interest, so why not invest in this channel? Click like and subscribe for more.